Trident Wargaming. Build it, paint it, play it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Trident Wargaming. I'm your host Bill, and we've got a Horus Heresy episode lined up for you today, which is Forging Your Narrative. It's something that we're starting to explore a lot on the channel, and I can get a little bit more into the reasons why later. Before we get started too far, just want to do a big shout out to Frederick and Dustin, our two patrons that are helping support Trident Wargaming, and all the support is appreciated. And if you are interested in supporting us, you can check it out in the link in the description. Now that we're done with that shameless plug, we'll continue on. So, getting back to Horus Heresy, Forging Your Narrative. The takeaway from the episode essentially is going to be where we're going to be heading as a channel, mainly with our Heresy content, and what's kind of spurring that. So forging your narrative, a lot of people know when you were trying to make your own narrative, there's a few different ways that you can spin this. And I use that term like your own loosely. It depends what you want to do. There are people who really want to roll with the canon stories, reenactments for certain battles, going through anything from Esteban 3, Esteban 5, Planet Murder, like tons of different things depending on what your group is, how big it is, the legions you have present. It's tough to make Esteban 5 happen if you don't have Loyalists, Salamanders, Raven Guard, or Iron Hands. So there's little things that you can kind of be bound to. Now, what I want to focus on is the untold stories of Horus Heresy. Essentially forging our own narrative, which is nice because you can really shoehorn it into the overall setting with that's the lore of the system, but you can also make it so completely unique and stand on its own two legs, where people really feel that they're a part of something bigger. And it very well, you could be adding your own community's interest or event results from your narrative into it, which is kind of cool because you all get to share the same idea. You're all kind of like-minded, driving for the same type of outcome. So the event that I'm using as a campaign primer, so I'm going to be hosting Iron Without, and it's Fratricide and the Ghoul Stars. Essentially, a little brief overview here is the Horus Heresy has torn the galaxy asunder. Legions of Space Marines battle against each other for supremacy, inflicting uncounted losses on both sides. This event will highlight the untold stories of the Horus Heresy as the conflict rages on in an isolated portion of space known as the Ghoul Stars. Main reason picking the Ghoul Stars, there's not a whole lot written about it. There's not a ton of supporting canon, which is nice because you can shoehorn basically any scenario you can think of into it. I'll continue on here. The event will pit loyalists and traitors against each other as they battle for control of the desperation system located off the astro-telepathic duct within the Ghoul Stars. That's a legit thing. I was looking at a bunch of old school books, ended up finding this little niche section and googling some online just to kind of get a little bit of a feel for it. There's really not a lot on it, so it was a nice spot to hone in on and make my attack for this particular narrative. Nice thing is we can pretty much take the information here and make it anything, essentially home growing our whole own story. I'll continue on. The system will be represented via a planetary empire map. So I have a bunch of these tiles, about 140, 150 of them. So I'm able to actually make quite a large territory and or map representing a planet or whatever. Each of the tiles will be directly representing tables at the event. territories on the map will be worth a specific amount of campaign points to your faction. At the end of each round, total amount of campaign points are tallied and added to the faction's total. At the end of the event, the faction with the highest number of points will have the scales of the battle tipped in their favor and will surely help turn the tide in the ever-growing conflict. So now, the way that I'm trying to have this event go is these Planetary Empire tiles are really nice because I'm going to be using them essentially to dictate the battlefield. It will represent all my tables at the event. There's going to be 16, so it's 16 loyalists for 16 traders for a total of 32, which was awesome. We sold out in about 2 days. Really, really cool response. And I have it set up in such a way, excuse me, it is going to be representing a risk table, and you're going to be able to capture certain territories worth higher or lower amount of campaign points. I have sections like, now think risk just for a moment, especially if I have it broken down like into the same style plot. Asia is going to be actually a bunch of different tables. I believe it's approximately 5 tables that I have on the map, which will be all represented on these tiles. It's going to be worth 9 campaign points. Everything's kind of even. It's usually like 5, 3, 1 amount of players. Essentially in the pack, we go on to talk about, and there's a reason why I made certain territories worth more and others less. The big reason for that is sometimes, no matter what, you have people who want to play a little harder, and not everyone's on the same page, especially in a narrative event. Narrative being subjective can often be interpreted however you like, and some people are going to play really solid lists. I'm not saying that solid lists aren't narrative. It doesn't really matter. Essentially, those bigger areas, the larger territories with more tables, are meant to attract the players who want to play a little bit more to the rules, a little bit more strict. Essentially, the harder lists want to, bang out. The nice thing is it should help attract like-minded players, whereas the territories that aren't worth as much, people who want to play a lot more casual Heresy, because we have people from all over Alberta and BC coming for this event, it's going to be nice because they can play a little bit more of a relaxed session, a little bit of a more relaxed game, where your results still matter and they'll still contribute to the overarching narrative itself. But you don't have to really worry too much, right? You can kind of take it for what it is, enjoy the game, kind of, have a beer, roll some dice with your opponent, shoot the shit, and still enjoy it. Where you can still do that throughout any game in the event, but it's nice because you can kind of coordinate, okay, you know what? I know locally, these guys are stronger players. I would obviously like to direct them towards the larger Asia or Germany or Europe, I should say, area, and I want to see how this unfolds. All the other people coming, we all kind of have a good idea of where everyone's at for games, so you can kind of start to see where people are going to be directing. The nice thing is the matchups are completely player dictated, and the way we're deciding this is after the first round, based on win-loss and essentially your VP. That's the only thing we're actually tracking, and it's only for this reason, is to determine who's going to be an attacker or defender. So the first person in the rankings or placings is going to be attacker, and we're going to have to keep track of loyalists and traders throughout the whole event in obviously descending order, and the next person will be a defender, and then attacker, defender, attacker, defender. These people, the attackers, are pretty much essentially waiting to see where they're actually going to be attacking. I have a little bit of the mechanics here put up. So defenders are going to be deploying their armies first. They get to pick the table of their choice. So there's 16. There's lots of variety. And attackers will get to choose the opponent they wish to attack second. So being a defender is actually really good. You can kind of walk around, pick what tables you want to jump on. But how we're going to represent this is on the actual Planetary Empire tiles, you're going to be able to place your model where you're defending. And what's nice is you don't really have to walk around. You can kind of watch people do this. And as an attacker, you can go up and go, well, you know what? I haven't played Imperial Fist for forever. I want to attack that guy. And you can attack. So you're attacking the army, not so much the player. So you get to really kind of set up your own grudge matches. You can kind of have your own, the own story of your crusade or your legion fighting against whatever opponents you want. The nice part about having the pre-discussion or the intent built into this pack about having, more experienced, stronger players should be in these areas is you're going to get those people they're going to know where it is on the map because I'm going to have it set this way with, borders so it's easy to identify. They don't have to think about, oh, is that guy, is this person I'm placing against, is he going to be okay with my list? Is it going to be too hard? Or I don't know. That's all out the window. All you have to do is, in this area, it's going to be a little harder games. You can throw your model down and you can be confident that both people are going to be on the same page. We're trying to use language in the pack to very much portray that, which will be pretty nice. So the format itself, fully painted event. It's our first fully painted 3-color minimum event. These can sometimes have a mixed bag. Some people like them, some people don't. My thing has always been to make it accessible for newer players or players that are just kind of getting started. We've been running a local Horus Heresy narrative event. We've been running a slow grow for our local Horus Heresy scene, and we have been making the main focus hobby orientated for painting. So the whole point of it's been to get your army painted. And at the end of our slow grow, it'll be 8 months since we started this venture to get your 3,000 point army painted. It just so happens that our event is about 3 weeks after our slow grow ends. Nice little break. People get to kind of relax. Maybe there's some last minute little units you want to paint, jump on because you've been, tinkering away, kind of doing your thing. But essentially, this is to coincide and reward those players that have been dedicated to the slow grow. Other people, if they just have their armies done, doesn't matter. It's great. Jump on in. So it's our first one like that, and it's essentially to kind of start showing. I really want to reward the people who are putting in the work. I'm fine to play against anything and everything. Proxies, you name it, I'll play just to roll dice and let people get a feel for their army. I get all about, investing tons of cash, and maybe you just don't like the army the way it plays. That's fine. But at a certain point, you have to be able to reward these players that are putting in the time. And when armies are mutually painted, everything's looking good, even if it is 3-color minimum, and like your army looks like Golden Demon, you know what? It doesn't matter that much because the immersion's still there. You're still staring at your armies from 2.5, 3 feet away, rolling dice. It still looks better than primer or gray plastic or whatever. Continue on with the format. So our armies will consist of 3,000 points, Crusade Force Org, regular limitations or restrictions for Lords of War and Primarchs. There's going to be a total of 5 games. 6 was kind of the initial thought, but 6 is a long weekend. It's can make for long days. So 5 is better. I know it's one less, but that's okay. You wrap up on a better note. There are no restrictions in place for the event, but we do ask for some self-moderation on lists. Now, I know that is kind of a cop-out bullshit little sentence in any pack or players pack, league, event, tournament, whatever. The rest of this will make more sense. The event itself is geared towards narrative play, and to ensure that you have the best experience possible, we ask that you build and play your army with this in mind. Everyone should strive for the coolest dude, aka our sportsmanship award. That is the main focus. You can play whatever you'd like, but you should be narratively driven and trying to build and play your army with being a sportsman. Essentially, we all want to be a shiny example of what we'd like to see in a heresy community. Victory points only matter for determining who will be attacking / defending. We talked about that already. There'll be a 3-hour time limit for each round in the event. You will be expected to have your supporting rules, hard copy or electronic, for units, task forces in your army. Battle Scribe is not just a pure substitute. That's just essentially, I just want to make sure everybody has access to the rules. I don't care if it's on your phone or if it's a book, whatever you want, that's totally fine, as long as you have something there. It's a big thing. You should be able to look up and support your army or units in your army with rules if you're asked. So continuing on, we're going to be using just straight up official Games Workshop rules and FAQ for the event. We're not using any third-party rules or anything like that. I've got a little hyperlink there. All models are expected to be WYSIWYG to a reasonable standard. Using a reasonable standard to counts as another model does not violate the policy. This rule exists to allow converted armies. If in doubt, send a picture of the model to your TO in advance and ask if it's acceptable. Most of the time, it's pretty much to encourage rule of cool. I'm not too much of a strict, stickler with all the weapon stuff. I know early, Horus Heresy 1.0, it was a really big thing. We were playing, very fresh, very new, so you really wanted to know what everyone's force was able to do at a glance. It's important, but it's not so important in narrative driven games or events. The 4 missions will be released for the event within a month of the start date in a PDF format. Based on which faction is gaining the upper hand in the conflict, there will be a 5th mission revealed on day 2 to represent the tide of battle changing. So essentially, the nice thing with a narrative event is as you're starting to play these missions, they can start to get a little bit more animated. You can have the players doing a lot of different things, where in the beginning it can kind of feel very protracted, or the first couple of games you're trying to reach out and score objectives, establish beachheads, whatever you want to call it. It's anything you want it to be. With that mission 5, the nice thing with especially aiming with this narrative driven thought process is we want to be able to show in the mission which side is actually winning. So there'll be 2 missions made, one where the loyalists are actually winning, and it puts the traitors in a very compromised spot, maybe like a desperate breakout escape kind of situation, and vice versa. If the traitors are actually winning, loyalists are going to be in a tough spot as well, basically to really show that you're on the ropes, things are kind of going down. Should be a lot of fun. Prizing, essentially we're just doing hobby-orientated prizes, no podium finishes. It is Best Painted Army for Loyalist, Best Painted Army for Traitor, Best Painted Single Model Loyalist or Traitor. Some people are going to be painting a lot to try and get ready for the event. And I want to have at least an opportunity that if they got one of their models done to their standard of painting, that we can now let them still have an opportunity to compete in the painting event. And then obviously, Best Sportsman, aka Coolest Dude. This is based on scores. We're going to have like a score sheet attached for every mission, just so everyone can kind of fill it out for themselves. There's going to be a campaign points tier. Essentially, these are rewards. After every game, we tally up how many points each side has. There will be ways to score additional CP in the actual missions. I'm actually thinking a couple different ways. One of the ones that I like the most is by my hand. You can insert pretty much a special rule where they're able to gain additional VP if you kill the other enemy warlord in combat. Something like that. We'll see how that kind of plays out. But essentially after 25 CP, we have targets of opportunity. So for the next round, there's no roll for night fighting. Turn 1 or 2, it's automatically on. Doesn't matter. And this is basically either side that hits this tier gets that applied to their next thing. 40 CP, Advanced Scout Deployment. D3 units may redeploy after both sides have finished deployment. This is done prior to Scout and Infiltrate. Again, nothing super great game breaking. I just wanted it to be more fun and kind of lighthearted. 55 CP. Orbital bombardment support. Everyone's got to have an orbital bombardment. You got to, roll some templates and drop shit on tables. At the start of turn 3, after reserves have been rolled, you may deploy 1 orbital bombardment strike. It is heavy 1, large blast, and it scatters full 3d6 because weapons fire from a, warship, battle barge, insert ship class here isn't accurate, not very anyways. It is strength 7, so you're not going to be risking losing any characters that aren't eternal. It's meant to be kind of, decent. AP3 Armor Bane Barrage. So essentially the worst it's going to end up doing, it can, immobilize your Spartan. Nothing's going to be exploding from it. The whole point was it creates a lot of feels bads when you can drop this bombardment tank or this bombardment shot on someone's tank, their Death Star, we'll say. That's a build everyone knows. But essentially on their Death Star unit or their Spartan, blows it up, wipes them out first round with something free in the game, which wasn't meant to completely fuck someone over. It was meant to kind of just make it a little bit more fun. So this, I think, makes it a lot more toned down, but fun because of the 3d6 scatter. It could be interesting, could create a lot of laughs. 70 CP, enhanced augury scanners, 1 unit in your army gains, +1 ballistic skill for the next game, not +1 to hit rolls. That's not what I want to do. That's really powerful. Yeah, that's too much, but +1 BS is good. And please note, this does not stack with the Cognis Signum, but the unit can be a vehicle, just not a super heavy vehicle. So essentially, yes, if you want to apply it to a Sicaran or a Spartan or something like that, cool, you can. That's totally fine. 90 CP, so there's supposed to be the kind of progressions as you go up. This is a trader-specific one. Gives them no sanctuary. Pick 1 piece of terrain on the opponent table half. It no longer provides any cover saves. This is pretty much right out of the Iron Warrior Warlord trait. It's, just a shameless steal. And that's fine. These are all little tests that I'm doing throughout the event because the event itself is a primer for the campaign that I'm going to be talking about. 90 CP, Loyalist specific. Reinforce the defenses. Pick 1 piece of terrain in your table half. You get +1 to your cover saves to a maximum of 4+. That's always nice. It's just a way to kind of have a back and forth balance. I think it's kind of neat. At the place where we've got full bar and kitchen staff, which is really nice. They do a solid job. Ran a few events there before. If you've been following along or supporting with us locally, you'll know. New army books, PDF releases. Not that I don't really think we're going to be getting anything within 30 days, but there is a 30 days before the event. Just it won't be used. Just to keep it easy for myself, as I'm going to be TOing, and it's kind of like herding cats, Most of the time it shouldn't be an issue, but there's those odd little things that pop up with some of the newer books or factions coming out. I just don't want to run into anything that I'm not able to speak on with a lot of knowledge. So that's kind of the main goal. That's pretty much the main focus for this event anyways. Campaign wise, obviously the campaign is going to be spread out over a lot more than just 5 games. We'd like to have it spread over probably the course of, I'm going to say, anywhere between 4 to 6 months. I'm not necessarily looking for more players. I'm looking for quality players that are going to want to partake in this. The nice thing about this particular campaign is I really want to incorporate all the different affiliated games, sub-games with 30k. So we want to focus on our standard frontline Horus Heresy, Age of Darkness missions, or armies. We want to focus on 20mm Titan fights. If it's just straight APOC tanks, Titans, like we let it rip. We want to focus on Zone Mortalis. We want to focus on Imperial Aeronautica. We want to focus on Adeptus Titanicus. We want to have all these different things in place so players can play any type of game that they want. We're also going to be trying to run a slow grow for Titanicus alongside with this. So people, even though they're learning the game, they're still having fun and they're kind of getting the hang of their Legio. They can still contribute to this campaign. The whole point of it's going to be a lot of fun. It should be pretty good. The campaign will expand a lot on these campaign tiers that I'm talking about as well. The CP tier reward. Essentially, we'll probably try and have around like 20 to 25. The whole intent for that is also to have a matrix of missions. So depending on what's been happening in your games and the results, which will still be on the planetary tiles. there'll be a matrix. Basically, you're defending this mission, or you're defending this planet. This person's attacking. Play here, and I'll be slowly kind of tinkering the ways to go through all the that full matrix for the games in a little bit. We got some mechanics to kind of poke at and talk with. I'm trying to reach out to a lot of different types of players and get some feedback for it, because I think it's something that could be easily applied to a bigger audience, although it's not necessarily better. Sometimes to keep the integrity of your event, your campaign, your vision, sometimes less is more. Some of the best games and gaming groups we ever had were 8 people banging out in the garage, just rocking out for a weekend. It was really fun. The big events when you have 30 plus people are also really fun. It all depends on where you're at, what your mindset is, and if the mechanics and willingness to do the work kind of helps float that along. Anyways, essentially, that's kind of my idea for that narrative. Like, that's one of my ideas for forging your own narrative, or using like non-canon stuff, but shoehorning it a little bit with some support. I kind of like the idea. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you think that sounds like something you'd be into. My main goal is to try and really lean on some old D&D experience as a DM, and start really creating these different types of stories where we can all kind of partake in the community and grow the local community even more than it has. Now I'd like to shift the podcast a little bit into kind of explaining why, or what has caused the change in direction. So if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, the channel here, you'll know that I was a very big advocate for Horus Heresy match play, and I was very much trying to promote the use of a common language that we could use for match play, to try and have balanced missions, and to try to have a points adjustment system that allowed us to, as a community, fix some of the rules, some weird loopholes, hopefully have some point adjustments to make more kits, more units in the game appetizing, thus creating a more robust system. Essentially, so what ended up happening, or what's changed, is when I was at the LVO 2023 event, I was invited to a TO social, which is separate from FLG in the event itself. It's actually a support program that's put on by Games Workshop to have a support package for like Kill Team, Warcry, Into Darkness / Boarding Actions, and 40K. This is where they were talking about the national qualifiers and a couple of different ways that they can promote these systems. After a little bit of an explanation of what the TO social program was about, there was kind of like a more relaxed question and answer session. So I asked one of the reps from Games Workshop, is Horus Heresy going to have a matched play system coming out? Is there going to be a book or any support at all? And he was very forthcoming and just explained it as pretty much this, and I'm going to loosely quote it essentially, but the design studio or the studio team does not care for or wish to support any form of competitive play with Horus Heresy. They don't like that at all. Match play, competitive play, that whole kind of genre, they don't really care much for that. I did say, there are some rules that are a little bit broken, or perhaps need a little bit more of a explanation. What about, the Scorpius is 120 points. And, if you maybe bumped it up a little bit, or you bumped a Vindicator or Medusa down, to make them more appealing to players, I think that would go a long way. Essentially, he said that the rules team knows there are some rules that are broken, and they know that some units might be overcosted a little bit. And I'm looking at those Lord of War from the PDF, the Legacies PDF, right? Like, some of those are a little bit wild, but essentially, Heresy shouldn't be focused in that sense. It's focused as a narrative historical game, and that part shouldn't matter, which was a little bit deflating to hear, to be honest. And then further up, he followed up with, we're getting FAQs. The range is supposed to go to plastic, essentially, and there's supposed to be some campaign, like other campaign books, Warzone books like that, eventually that will be coming out, but no firm dates, nothing like that. Although the biggest takeaway was that match play will just not exist at all, which, for what I was wanting to create that language and have a balanced kind of effort where players could come to the table and use similar language and have a 50-50%, of actually like winning their game instead of, tying it into a narrative, was kind of my whole direction, or my whole want for that particular system. Now knowing that it's not really in the cards, it's allowed me to shift my focus with the Horus Heresy here locally, which inspired obviously this event, and now it'll kind of grow into a campaign where I'm able to really tweak and kind of hone things. I'm trying to take a lot of inspiration from some of these old campaign books, Planetary, the Empire books, obviously, with the tiles. I'm trying to also do, Crusade of Fire, Planetary Assault, just a bunch of these different kinds of campaign books, City of Death, like just reading a bunch of old literature and trying to bounce ideas off of some of the local players, essentially to come up with something that feels like it's interactive on many different platforms, but it also has like a very nice fun factor to it, and it can be easily supported by having elements of the actual canon to kind of help lift it up where it seems believable enough where you could essentially get that going. So expect in the coming months for the narrative Horus Heresy to really be focused on. Essentially, we're going to be really going into it deep, exploring a lot of the rules of cool, exploring different styles, a different style of play. And I think the biggest benefit is because we've been open to playing any way we can, Heresy, be it, narrative specific or match play or competitive, whatever you want to call it. We play it all. We pretty much do it all. We play it all. Any sub game, be it zone, be it the old kind of Centurion mode, whatever you want to play, we've played it, we've done it. Always having a good time, but now the focus will be purely narrative and really trying to create and foster that play style within our local, so we can really start to expand and grow. There's a lot of inspiration from myself taken from also like SM battle reports and how they're doing some of these unique things. Obviously, the way that 30K channel used to run a lot of their stuff. It's just cool to have, an overarching story that you can build on and let everybody participate. As far as that goes, I would have plans to eventually expand this into maybe like a campaign book specifically that can be shared with everybody, like on the channel, and you can make it grow into a global thing. Again, that's if the mechanics support like that large size. But yeah, I'm excited for the future for what we have planned for Heresy. Especially, it lets us touch base on a whole bunch of different topics. Obviously, building the narrative for your list now and focusing your whole list around this particular storyline. My Imperial Fists themselves, a little background on that. So I ended up making them fourth company, where in Warhammer 40K, the fourth company is in charge of security / guarding the phalanx. And my shoehorned narrative for it is essentially my army uses a lot of prototype weaponry, a lot of Iliastus assault cannons, very punchy squads. So my spun fluff headcannon is essentially this fourth company has been pretty much handpicked or appointed by Dorn to create a wedge to blow a hole open for him and the Emperor to escape Terra during the Siege of Terra. And Dorn would use the fourth company to essentially open a hole in the attacking Traitor Marines forces and punch out, escape, break out, and that's it. So the army is essentially like really punchy. It can do some pretty fun things, a lot of damage. I really want to start leaning into more of the Templar theme in the army, because I've been painting my Terminators in Templar colors, the Ladrator Proteus in Templar colors, which actually we have a sprue review / painting video. There's a couple different videos coming out about the way I painted my tank to begin with, and then a sprue and review video of sub-assemblies and ways you can actually have your Proteus built. So keep a lookout for that, probably in about a week's time. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun. I want to start moving towards Sword Brethren. I didn't really care for them too much, just from an in-game point of view. 2+ armor save with power swords, it was okay, but I just felt there was ways to spend points on better things like vets or anything else. But I feel now, now that my priorities for Heresy have shifted, I really want to focus on Rule of Cool for my list. So Sword Brethren will be coming in. I've been converting them out of the Tortuga Bay MK2 tabard bodies, which are really, really top-notch quality. So anybody interested in what those look like, there are some pictures on the socials, but there's going to be more coming down the pipe as we continue. And then as we start to get into, our zone games, little skirmishes, we start dabbling with the Titanicus slow grow, a bunch of different kinds of slow grows to build up the local. So once we actually do kick off this narrative campaign, we can keep it ever expanding. We can always continue to let it evolve on its own, where it might take a long time to, battle on this planet and get everything sorted. And then I'm hoping that Games Workshop hears our cries and they bring out a plastic updated version of Battlefleet Gothic, because it'd be awesome to take that campaign to the stars, and then from there it just sky's the limit. It could be a lot of fun. So essentially that's kind of what's changed. That's kind of what's caused a lot of the pivot in our personal pursuit for Heresy. I'm still very much a big fan of the game, and I hope to really expand on my forces. We always played, solid lists, so I think playing it a lot more lighthearted and still building solid, good lists, but not really so much worrying about the outcome, where you can focus on the story and the journey of how these armies are engaging, is going to be a lot of fun, especially like I mentioned earlier with the D&D background, and being able to lean on a bunch of different source lores and other players. It's essentially going to be a lot of fun for us to kind of explore this whole area. I still would like to see a balance thing for points, like an adjustment or something come, but I'm not too worried now. Like, I think at this point in time, it's been probably 8-9 months. I think we're getting, still solid content, and we're getting drops coming. Obviously Thursday previews could be a little bit better, but I think it's slowly coming along, which is nice. I'm hoping that we start to get some more Marine kits though. Anything from MK6 Assault Marines. I'd really like to see MK2. It would be preferred, but if MK6 is going to be the flavor of, Age of Darkness 2.0, that's fine, just because I'm more than happy to see the kits continue to evolve. So that'll be kind of a nice thing. But essentially, though, that's kind of what's coming down the pipe for the next little while. In terms of new things, heresy-wise or hobby-wise, there's a couple different things. I want to touch base quickly about the resin kits for the Dreadnoughts. The Legion Dreadnoughts obviously got kind of pulled. Now they're back where you can order an upgrade chest, and I believe just recently, earlier today, basically whatever they're sold out. If they're sold out, they're gone, no longer available, which is kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, I really didn't like putting the resin kits together very much. They just felt a little bit, like they're okay, but weren't great. The posability and the versatility of the new plastic kits is great, but you do lose a little bit of that flavor that you're going to be getting from like the main Legion upgrades. I feel like it was kind of a missed opportunity where they could have had a Legion upgrade sprue or something like that, where you could have charged, $35-40, but you could have had like a little upgrade sprue or something on each little individual from each little individual Legion, or they could have roped it in more like a upgrade pack for shoulders, where I know on some of the 40k kits you can order like a 40k upgrade sprue where it has your shoulder pads, and then on the other one it's got like a head, a special backpack, maybe a gladius blade for your ultramarine sergeants, special little trinkets and stuff. They could have probably done something like that, although it is what it is. Plastic production obviously costs a lot more money, so there's issues with that as well. So I'm not super sad to see the resin kits go. It would have been nice, I think, if they included the shin, leg, calves sections and the shoulders, because those are also kind of done up with extra details. I think they're kind of missing the mark a little bit by just releasing the chests, but that's my personal opinion. And the other thing is with those Sky Hunter squadrons of the jet bikes. I know even here locally we've had some issues with cap allocations in the past, but this particular one, the last communication we ended up getting was it was capped at 1. So all stores, minus Games Workshop stores and online obviously, but all brick and mortar trade accounts were pretty much just going to be getting 1 box. This was essentially this was an attempt by GW to create a little bit of balance and to ensure that every store at least got 1. Just regardless of account size and how small or big you were able to still order something for your store. And then obviously the caps are off as of Monday. What's going to be left, I don't know. We'll see how much they sell, I guess. That's kind of the only thing that was a little disappointing. But I can see the reasoning of why they want to put the caps in. Because if you don't have the caps, essentially you get kind of what happens with the Scorpius missile tank, which it's been out of stock forever through trade. Like I'm sure you can get it through Games Workshop online store, and that's totally fine. But it's been sold out since it came out release wise. So, and it's been weeks and weeks and weeks where there's just nothing. There's no movement at all. There's nothing coming from warehouse. Everything's still set at 0. So I'm hoping the cap will kind of drum up a little bit of demand. People will have an exact number of what they need, and then we'll be able to reorder on Monday and kind of spread the love everywhere. We'll see how it goes. As far as that goes, that's essentially the biggest news that I've got for Heresy stuff. I really want to be focusing on a few different alternative Heresy games as well. I've been kind of looking at a few different online creators, and actually we're going to be looking hopefully at getting a podcast episode with the Ossified guy who created the Horus Heresy Kill Team. Tons of different PDF work. If you've been keeping up a little bit on Facebook with some of their posts and updates, it looks pretty solid from a kill team point of view, which I think is just another tool in the tool belt to allow you to play these different Horus Heresy battles or these different aspects of the game, because obviously it's got a wide spectrum of ways you can enjoy the setting and the lore. So this is just another way to do that. So definitely stay tuned for that kind of stuff. And we hope that you've been enjoying the Heresy content up to this point. We're still down to obviously help with list building. We do have people, writing in and asking us about certain lists or rights of war. So keep that up. We definitely enjoy that. And if you guys want to hear more about that stuff, we can talk about it on the podcast. We usually keep it offline and just respond directly. But if enough people are messaging and asking questions about certain units or rights of war, or just ways to, even creating your own events or narratives or missions, anything like that, we definitely love to hear about that and continue on helping you guys out and trying to make Heresy the best it can be. So definitely, stay tuned. Lots of terrain projects coming up as well. I've got lots of zone boards ready to go. We want to make a big splash next year, having like everything done and painted, obviously. So I've got 3 full Zone Mortalis tables that are ready to go. It's going to be a big push to try and get everything painted up together. But I know it'll be a lot of fun, and it'll just take the events to that next level of immersion, where you can really start to expand and play around. And then we'll be incorporating Titanicus and stuff as well next time. So there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipe. If the match play competitive stuff hasn't been your jam, and you definitely want to get kind of a different perspective now, and you want to tune in for a little bit of a different kind of approach, you'll like what's coming down for Heresy in the next little while, because it's going to be a complete 180 of where we were. And it's going to be just focusing on a lot more of the fun, lighthearted nature, and we'll be focusing on a lot of war stories as well. A lot of people really wanted to hear about games, so that's one thing we definitely want to touch base on. And we'll do event recaps. We're still going to travel around and hit up some of the events that are happening, within North America. So stay tuned for all that stuff. Just lots of exciting stuff coming down. And definitely can't wait to share it with you. So stay tuned, and we hope that you join us next time. Catch you guys later.